Today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 profound and very helpful wisdom quotes to transform your relationship with your children. Actually, the wisdom in these quotes can be used for all your relationships. And that's the beauty of what I share here on this channel, is that it's timeless and it's always relevant and helpful in our daily life. Wisdom will never go out of fashion. I'm Aliki and welcome to my channel. If you haven't been here before, welcome back to all my awesome subscribers. So let's begin with one of my favorite quotes ever by Byron Katie. And this one may be a little controversial and may offend some people.
People often ask me if I had a religion before 1986, and I say yes. It was, my children should pick up their socks. This was my religion, and I was totally devoted to it, even though it never worked. Then one day, I realized that it simply wasn't true. The reality was that day after day, they left their socks on the floor, after all my years of preaching and nagging and punishing them. I saw that I was the one who should pick up the socks if I wanted them picked up. My children were perfectly happy with their socks on the floor. Who had the problem? It was me. It was my thoughts about the socks on the floor that had made my life difficult, not the socks themselves. And who had the solution? Again, me. I realized that I could be right or I could be free. It took just a few moments for me to pick up the socks without any thought of my children. And an amazing thing began to happen. I realized that I loved picking up their socks. It was for me, not for them. It stopped being a chore in that moment, and it became a pleasure to pick them up and see the uncluttered floor. Eventually, they noticed my pleasure and began to pick up their socks on their own, without my having to say a thing. Our parents, our children, our spouses and our friends will continue to press every button we have until we realize what it is that we don't want to know about ourselves yet. They will point us to our freedom every time.
So let me ask you, what's your religion? I remember when I first came across this quote by Byron Katie, and it absolutely blew me away. It blew me away because I instantly saw the truth of it and realized in that moment that I had just been trapped in this prison of my mind where I was convinced that my children should behave in a certain way, and that if they didn't, I was going to be bothered and upset by it. Her words sparked the wisdom within me, and I could see in that moment the resistance in my being, the resistance to what was happening, to how my children were behaving. Now, I know there's going to be some of you out there who listen to those words and say, is she saying we shouldn't tell our children to put their clothes away? Oh, so I should just let my child live in a pigsty, should I? Yes, but you have to teach them proper behavior. You have to teach them to grow up like proper human beings. Now, I'm not arguing with any of those points. And at the end of the day, only you know what feels right in each moment. What I'm hoping is that Katie's words will at least cause you to question some of the suffering that you've been experiencing in your parenting because of the expectations and desires that you have concerning your children's behaviour. Katie's words are a constant reminder to me that I can either choose to be right or choose to be free. And believe me, every time I choose to be free, even though sometimes I forget and I can be bothered by seeing a messy room and, you know, all those thoughts can come up. Katie showed me that actually it was okay for me to go in and tidy up my child's room because I wanted to see a tidy room. I was the one who had the problem with the messy room. So I fixed that problem by tidying up the room, and it didn't take me long, and it really made me happy. Now, I am human, and I do fall into a bit of nagging every now and then, you know? But the point is, I know better than to expect my children to behave in the way that I think they should all the time. When I was a teenager living at home, I really wasn't bothered at all about having a tidy room, and I got nagged quite a lot. Didn't help. It doesn't work, right? I mean, you could threaten, I suppose. You could have consequences, you could have rewards. You can try all sorts of things. I've done that in the past, yes. And you know, I wasn't interested in learning how to cook or clean or anything like that. But when I left home, I learned how to do all of that stuff because I had to.
Nowadays, many home environments have a very nervous energy field because everybody is so busy getting things done. The parents are busy getting things done, and the children are encouraged to continuously do this and do that, or sometimes encouraged to stop doing this or stop doing that. There's always something, the next thing to do, that seems to be in the underlying energy of your family. What's the next thing that we need to do? And have you done that yet? Come on! Many well-meaning parents interact with their children predominantly on the level of doing. Either do this or stop doing that. And so the being of the child is never fully acknowledged. In order to acknowledge the being of the child, you have to spend moments when you give the child your fullest attention. Not your fullest attention because you're talking about something that needs to be done, but your fullest attention, for example, by just listening to the child when he has something to say to you. It just needs to be a few minutes where your attention rests upon them, even if they're not directly interacting with you. Observe them at play without telling them to do this or that, or don't do this or that, but simply allow your attention to rest on them and watch them. In that state of thoughtless awareness, where you're just the aware presence for the children. And then, occasionally, when they come close to you, look into their eyes. It doesn't have to be long. You look into their eyes when you talk to them, when they talk to you, and in that moment of looking, you connect with their being. That means you acknowledge the deep reality of that child. You truly acknowledge their being. Give them attention. It doesn't have to be long periods of time, but often, at night before bedtime, during the day, watch them, listen to them fully. And don't interfere with some kind of advice. Just listen, just look, Acknowledge their beautiful being which is there. That's the greatest thing you can do for the child.
Isn't this quote by Eckhart Tolle absolutely marvelous? I see what he's talking about so much. This energy of sort of fussing, you know, how often we're connecting with our children in this way of focusing on the doing, what they should be doing and what they're not doing and what they shouldn't be doing. There's so much of that. You can actually spend the whole child's upbringing focusing on this aspect. And if you've done that, please don't feel bad about it, because remember, we're all doing the best we can according to what we know. And many of us didn't realize years ago what we realize today. So it's okay. Everything was meant to happen the way it did. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened that way, right? So just rest in that. Eckhart tells us that we need to spend moments of time where we're giving the child our full attention. And this is our full attention without an agenda. Wanting to spend time with them just in their presence. This is really what it means to value their being and to connect with them on this very pure level. Yes, simply being together can be so meaningful, so important. Isn't this what we need more than anything in today's world? True connection, recognizing and appreciating each other's true being, not always making demands and having expectations, but appreciating one another and actually seeing our child, seeing their beautiful being. I remember when I first came across these words, and again, they sparked the wisdom within me, touched me very deeply, and made me want to incorporate what I learned into my daily life. And I remember thinking, you know, from now on, I don't want a single day to go by without having had such a moment with each one of my children, a time of real connection. And so I started doing things like coming alongside them when they were playing a game that I normally wouldn't be interested in. And I'd sit there and watch them and maybe ask them to tell me about it. Or I would give more mindful hugs. I started finding more moments in the day to just have this simple connection. And it was the most beautiful thing. You know, we didn't have to go out and do anything fancy. I didn't have to have money to spend. It could just be another ordinary day. But there would be this extraordinary moment of connection, appreciation, and love being shared between us. You sort of merge into the oneness with the person you're with. And it's a very peaceful, beautiful, pleasant, shared awareness, it seems, you know, where you're just there together, fully present together, and words aren't necessary. You know, to this day, those words still touch my heart, and I'm still reminded of the importance of not letting a day go by without that happening, if possible. There's a lot of young people who are really struggling. And I strongly believe that spending this kind of time with your child can make a huge difference. Don't underestimate your child feeling seen. It's a big deal to feel seen by your parent. And remember, words aren't always necessary. In fact, many times words are just inadequate. Let's have a listen to this very interesting conversation between Byron Katie and a frustrated mother.
I want my son to be a together student who doesn't veg out or is confused about his sexuality or eats junk food and sits hypnotized in front of the TV getting fat. How do you treat him? How do you react when you believe the thought, I want him to get up and do something constructive? I get confused and scared and angry. And how do you treat him? I disconnect, I separate, and I don't pay attention to him. I don't see him. Yes, so let's see him. Close your eyes. I don't see him at all. I just see my fear and my projection. Close your eyes. He's watching television, he's vegging out, and you're walking by the room. Now, who would you be without the thought, I want him to get up and do something more constructive? Look at him. I'd be loving, fun, funny, productive, flowing, a happy mum, and I'd be present. And when he talked to me, I would listen to what he'd be saying instead of my own monologue. All you maybe need to take a look at is listening to him without your story interfering with what he's saying. Just listen. It's okay to just listen and be open. Close your eyes and look at your son. Who would you be without this story about him? I would see his beauty, and I would feel grateful and blessed. So, with the thought, with your story, there's this dysfunctional, ne'er-do-well son. And without your story, there's the real son. Not the son you're imagining, but your child, your son. Who's actually adorable. You know, the only thing between you and unconditional love is what you're believing about your son. As you continue to question what you believe, you can't hold those thoughts. And then, as you know, when you're doing the work, everything starts to shift.
You know, if you're believing upsetting thoughts about your child, it's going to make you behave in a certain way towards them and around them, probably in a way that you don't want to be behaving, because expressing that frustration really doesn't help the situation. In fact, it probably makes it worse. So remember Katie's words. Who would you be without those thoughts that you currently have about your child, without those complaining thoughts, without those worrying beliefs? How would you show up today? You'd be a different person, right? As the mother realized, she would be fun-loving, she would be present, instead of in her mind projecting all her worries onto her son. That doesn't mean that you have to stop wanting things to change. No. But if you think about it, are things more likely to change if you carry on reacting in a frustrated way and communicating with your child out of that frustration? Or if you're present with them, if you see them, if you acknowledge their being, if you're able to hold a space for them to open to you when they're ready to, in which situation are things more likely to improve? We forget, don't we? It's very easy to forget because the mind gets fixated on a problem and how this shouldn't be this way, it should be a different way. It should be according to my preference. If we're not aware, then we don't know any better. We just keep going along with those thoughts, living out our frustrations, and every day can become a battle, an exhausting fight against life and against what's happening. So my sincere hope is that these wisdom quotes that we've explored together today would shine a fresh light on your situation, and that you would be reminded to connect on the level of being with your child. Always remember that the greatest thing you can do for your child is to acknowledge their beautiful being. Simply see them. Just see them. See past all the behaviors, all your preferences, all your projections, and see the true beautiful being that they are in their very heart, in their core, in their essence, in their true nature. This is why knowing our true nature is so fundamental and changes everything, the way that we go through life and all our relationships, because when you recognize your own true nature, you automatically recognize it in others. And then it's easier to get past what's happening and all the behaviors and all the personal thinking that's clouding that true nature from being expressed. That's what we really want to see here, is that your child is going through something, right? And what they need is a lifeline. They need someone to see them for who they really are. They need someone to see beyond the outward appearance and circumstances, and to be present, fully present as love for them, to be present as everything they need in that moment that they can't find, to find their way home, really, because they feel so lost. We're not here to fix them, but we can certainly be here to be present with them, to share that love and presence with them, and to hold that safe space for them where they can enter into the peace of not living constantly in the scary world of their mind. And remember to keep questioning, who would you be without those stressful, anxious, troublesome, frustrating thoughts that you're having? What kind of a parent would you be? Ask yourself this often. And finally, it's okay to pick up the socks. It really is. It doesn't matter what anyone says. If you want to see them off the floor, you're free to pick them up. It doesn't mean that your child will never learn. But it might mean that your child will have a happier parent for a while at least. You may not have a lot of say or control when it comes to what they do, especially as they get older. But you have a lot of say and control over the atmosphere that you create and nurture in your home. We actually have a lot more freedom than we realize. Every day is a brand new opportunity to live a new day with your child, with your family. It doesn't have to be the same as yesterday. Even within the commitments of work and school and everything that needs to be done in the home, there is a lot of leeway, in terms of what we prioritize, in terms of the moments we're going to spend together today. And even if they don't want to hang out with you and they just want to stay in their room, perhaps you can still find a way to give a mindful hug or to make a drink with love and bring it to them. It's just a very different kind of energy. The energy that you have around what's happening, the energy of your parenting is crucial. It's crucial. Learn to be the love that you are for yourself, for your child, for everyone in your life. What greater thing is there? What greater thing is there? Wisdom Quotes Cafe, my Facebook. You can find almost all of them in my Facebook group, but there's only one wisdom, I'm always hanging out, reading comments and replying. I'm always hanging out there. I invite you to pop over there and have a look if you'd like to. I just can't get it out, can I? Right. If you enjoyed today's wisdom quotes and pretty much all the wisdom quotes that I share with you every week, I invite you to come and join me in my Facebook group, the Wisdom Quotes Cafe, because that's where I get them all from.